Hello and good evening. You are watching Newsplus right here on ZTN Prime. It is a Wednesday, halfway through the week. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Faith Nyaude. Now let's take a quick look at stories making the headlines tonight. The president will on Thursday hold bilateral talks with President Xi Jinping, and the two leaders are expected to engage in discussions to strengthen bilateral relations and expand areas of cooperation. Today, the president was among 26 world leaders who witnessed the 80th commemorations of China's Victory Day. We have our correspondent Dudu Zochuma on standby in Beijing with more details. Stay tuned for the latest update on a story which got tongues wagging yesterday. Tinted car windows. We have Justice Minister Zihambi clarifying on the matter. A 7-ton truck carrying second-hand clothes smuggled from Mozambique into Zimbabwe caught fire earlier today at the Burma Valley Vumba turnoff. We spoke to some witnesses who gave us an account of what happened. And later on in sport, Brian Bennett's fifth career half-century of 81 runs off 57 balls was in vain as Sri Lanka claimed the first match of the 3-match T20I series with a 4-wicket victory. Our top story this evening, President Mnangagwa earlier today joined 26 world leaders at Tiananmen Square for China's 80th Victory Day Grand Parade, with the Asian country committing to multilateralism based on mutual benefit and respect. Now, the commemorative event fused solemn remembrance with the spectacle of some military strength, with China showcasing a wide range of some advanced weaponry that is designed to strengthen its air, sea, and ground combat capabilities. President Mnangagwa's attendance at the celebrations reflects the enduring solidarity between Zimbabwe and China during the country's liberation struggle, when China was a critical source of support.
In Beijing, Tiananmen Square was alive with history and spectacle. President Emerson Mnangagwa joined 26 world leaders as China marked 80 years since victory in the war of resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War. Other leaders in attendance include Russia's Vladimir Putin, North Korea's Kim Jong-un, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It was a sheer political theater with a potent message, and President Mnangagwa was part of the cast. The president was welcomed to Tiananmen Square by his Chinese counterpart, President Xi Jinping. A firm handshake between the two leaders, signifying the strong and historical bond which has existed between Harare and Beijing for the past 6 decades. Above, 26 helicopters carved the numbers 8 and 0 across the skies. On the ground, tanks, rocket launchers, and hypersonic missiles rolled past in precision formation. China displayed its military might in front of more than 50,000 people gathered at Beijing's Tiananmen Square. China's allies, Zimbabwe among them, watched and gave top marks to the displays. Elsewhere, particularly in the West, the reaction was different. For Zimbabwe, the celebrations were more than a military display. They were a reaffirmation of a friendship forged over 60 years ago. Speaking ahead of today's event, President Mnangagwa described China as Zimbabwe's foremost ally.
From that time up to now, we have cultivated very warm and very close relations with the People's Republic of China, both at political and at military level.
The bonds, born in war, have grown into something deeper. Today, Zimbabwe and China enjoy strong people-to-people ties, and Beijing remains Harare's closest ally. Beyond political relations, China and Zimbabwe have grown into strong economic partners. Trade between Zimbabwe and China has reached a massive $1.9 billion during the first 5 months of this year.
So we have a very long relationship with the People's Republic of China. They contributed to armed struggle. Yes, we were the first. I led the first group here. The second group was led by Josiah Magama Togogara. They came after us, after we had gone back, after we completed. And Josiah led the second group in China here. So we owe a lot to China in the contribution to the liberation of our country.
Back to the parade, President Xi watched from the gate of heavenly peace before delivering his speech to members of China's military. President Xi used the occasion to honor the sacrifices of the past while also projecting China's growing global presence. He also expressed appreciation to the visiting leaders, a gesture that highlights the value Beijing places on friendships like the one it shares with Zimbabwe.
向支援和帮助过中国人民抵抗侵略的外国政府和国际友人表示衷心感谢。向参加今天大会的各国来宾表示热烈欢迎。
For Zimbabwe's president, being at Tiananmen Square was both history and message, honoring the past while cementing a partnership that continues to shape Zimbabwe's future.
We're still staying with the story, and now we cross over live to Beijing for an overview of today's proceedings at China's Victory Day celebrations from ZTN foreign correspondent Dunduzo Chuma. Dunduzo, good evening to you and thank you so much for joining us. Now, what was the atmosphere like and how significant was the president's attendance, particularly looking at the fact that the ongoing shift in the global power dynamics?
It was a colorful celebration of China's history, in particular their victory over fascism 80 years ago. At the same time, the event did not look backwards only, but was forward-looking, with China showcasing its military equipment, top-notch military equipment. Again, the President Xi Jinping calling for multilateralism, saying that they are ready to work with any country on the basis of mutual benefit and mutual respect. The president's presence is very significant and in many ways, but most importantly, I think the president as a person represents or symbolizes the deep relationship between Zimbabwe and China, having received military training here more than 60 years ago, and now coming back as the leader of Free Zimbabwe. So he represents that deep historical connection between China and Zimbabwe. But more importantly, he reads from the same book as President Xi Jinping on the principle of multilateralism and relationships that give countries common gain and respect.
Now, let's talk about some lessons. What lessons can Zimbabwe learn from China's development trajectory, and how can we tap into the warm relations with Beijing in order to spur our development agenda?
Well, President Xi Jinping's invitation for countries with a common interest to join China in working towards peace and development resonate, I think, strongly with Zimbabwe, especially considering our diplomatic and economic relations. As we speak, the president is meeting President Xi Jinping tomorrow to further strengthen ties and expand areas of cooperation. So I think it's not a matter of learning something, but already Zimbabwe is in a relationship of mutual benefit with China, and we expect that after tomorrow's meeting of the two leaders, there will be deeper cooperation and there will be more to do that would develop the two countries economically.
Well, thank you, Dunduzo, for those insights. That's our foreign correspondent, Dunduzo, in Beijing. Meanwhile, President Mnangagwa is expected to hold some bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, on Thursday. Foreign Affairs Minister Professor Amon Murira speaks on the growing political and economic relations between Harare and Beijing.
Zimbabwe and the People's Republic of China have a comprehensive strategic relationship and are working on a common future, as well as working on a five-star ironclad relationship. Our relationship with China is epitomized by our cooperation in the support that we got from the People's Republic of China during our liberation struggle. And our president, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, is a symbol of that cooperation. From a young man who was being trained to liberate his country to the president of that same country.
Now, in order to put this into perspective, talking about President Mnangagwa and President Xi Jinping's meeting tomorrow, we're joined live by Lazarus Sauti, who is a political analyst. Lazarus, good evening. What are the likely diplomatic and economic issues that will dominate the talks that are going to take place between President Mnangagwa and President Xi Jinping, especially in the context of China's growing interest in doing business here in Africa?
Economic interest. Zimbabwe is suffering from a heavy debt burden from international lenders to international lenders. Sorry, so you realize that we have monies that should go direct to IMF and other international institutions, financial institutions, and China is now making that burden a bit easier because it is financing infrastructural projects here in Zimbabwe, especially in areas of road transportation. One notable example is the Robert Gabriel International Airport Expansion Project that was funded by China. We have Wange power supply projects also funded by China, and we are seeing notable investments in terms of road infrastructure, and on that aspect credit to China, and I think His Excellency the President of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, is going to seek more partnerships, economic partnerships with China. He's going to request more support, especially to fund infrastructural projects, to fund even agricultural projects.
Now, Lazarus, with Zimbabwe's plan now to join BRICS and also garner a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council, how important are these engagements in advancing the country's diplomatic leverage?
So without a doubt, China is an influential actor when it comes to international politics, and as a key member of the Security Council, it has influence, and that influence can be of significance to Zimbabwe, especially in its bid to join the BRICS community, as well as the non-permanent seat in the United Nations. Remember, China shielded Zimbabwe for a long time when it comes to our wars, our diplomatic tiffs with the global north, and it is also our expectations as the citizens of this country that China is going to lobby, is going to advocate for our cause to join the BRICS, as well as to join the United Nations Security Council as a non-permanent member. When it comes to pushing our national interest, I think that move is critical, because it will allow Zimbabwe to have a voice when it comes to international politics, when it comes to discussing issues that affect the global citizenry. So it is also the expectation of Zimbabwe and Zimbabweans that the meeting between President Xi Jinping as well as President Emmerson Mnangagwa is going to discuss on those issues and other areas that can stimulate sustainable development in this country.
Thank you so much, Lazarus, for joining us. That's Lazarus Salt, a political analyst, just helping us analyze Zimbabwe and China's relations going forward. Now, after the break, we are taking you and giving you details into something that got people talking yesterday, a ban on tinted car windows. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Didn't graduate? I guess I blew it.
You couldn't advise him anything. He would just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoilt.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
The guy walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
Harare, tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Catch exclusive interviews every weekday for candid, exciting, and thought-provoking conversations with your host, Erika Ndoro.
We talk about arts, we can talk about sports, we can even talk about politics, and sometimes we venture into a nice guitaristic play.
The one story where you can't get out of your head. Wakatarisa munhu so Erika like where you are sitting. Ndozongokona bata face so pasina munhu.
Wakasiya music yako yo afro chakuti ndo music manje no Zimbabwe.
And I'm sure they're still saying the same thing now.
Yeah, so
Shona kana kuti chindevere kana mumwe mutaure muno muZimbabwe ndiwe iwewe. Ndiwo rupawo rwako. Ndicho chidadiso chako.
Catch me, Erika Ndoro, right here on ZTN Prime every single Monday at 7 p.m. whilst we get exclusive.
Welcome back. You are still watching Newsplus. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now we shift our focus to a story that got people talking yesterday. Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Minister Ziyambi announced in Parliament today that Zimbabwe has no law prohibiting the tinting of car windows. He was responding to questions that were being raised by legislators during the National Assembly question and answer session that was being held today. Legislators demanded answers over a government official's misleading announcement. Our correspondent Sharon Mijinjema has the details.
An announcement by Secretary for Presidential Affairs and Devolution Tafadzwa Muguti at a press conference in Harare yesterday declared that police will descend on individuals with tinted car windows. Today, leader of government business in Parliament Ziyambi said Zimbabwe has no such law at the moment. He said if such a regulation would be introduced, the announcement would come from government spokespersons, the presidential spokesperson, or the relevant minister. Since the announcement yesterday, social media has been abuzz with debates on what legal instrument would be used to enforce the regulation. Legislators are demanding answers on what led to the inaccurate announcement.
tiri kuapa ngepekuti simba racho rekuti arekete zviro zvinobata nyika yeshe zviri zvekumusoro make mungariona kuri.
Some legislators are demanding to know if any action will be taken to address the confusion caused by the conflicting policy announcements.
Nderipidano richatorwa nevakuru kuti vagadzirise mwana anosumuka achitaura zvemumusoro make zvisina tsarukano maita basa.
Responding to the legislators' concerns, Minister Ziyambi maintained that the matter does not fall within the purview of legislators. Minister Ziyambi advised those who may have been ticketed by police on account of tinted windows to approach the courts. At the moment, Zimbabwe only has a regulation against tinting of vehicle windscreens, as it would obstruct the driver's vision. Sharon Munjenjema for ZTN News at Parliament.
Now let's talk service delivery. Over 23,000 Chitunguza households are set to breathe a sigh of relief from sewage bursts following the commencement of a project to help replace old pipes with glass reinforced plastic pipes. The project, which was contracted to Infradector, has already begun and is projected to be completed by November of this year. Speaking during a tour to monitor progress, Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution for Harare Province, Charles Tavengwa, said the government will continue disbursing funds for the benefit of the general populace.
When we requested for the release of this money, initially we were requesting for almost about 2 million plus something. We had to convince government that it was a priority area. This is why these devolution funds were released for Chitunguza specifically. We are now pushing for Harare, but we want to see to it that this project is completed, because those pipes which were donated by African Development Bank then, that time FDB, are put to good use, and residents benefit from that. So I hope and pray that Chitunguza Town Council, to you, the Mayor, do appreciate this. Yes, please. We are, as government, we are there to back you as Chitunguza. You don't work in isolation. Yeah. No, you work with government.
Now, Acting Director for Chitunguza Municipality, Talent Mashinga, said the project is divided into 2 lots. Sengeza main outfall, which will cover 3.5 kilometers, and Pagomba line that will cover 1.5 kilometers.
Basically, when this spur is done, we are looking to it leaving approximately around 23,000 households of Chitunguza. That is to cover basically the whole of Sengeza, and we expect this project to be done by the end of November.
Now, one of our headline stories, a 7-ton truck transporting second-hand clothes went up in flames early this morning at Vumba intersection in Motare. According to an eyewitness, the truck driver was reportedly involved in a high-speed chase with the police after being intercepted for allegedly smuggling second-hand bells through a porous border entry point. Moments later, the vehicle caught fire, reducing the entire consignment to ashes. This comes shortly after the selling of second-hand clothes was banned in Zimbabwe by the government. Manicaland Acting Police Spokesperson Assistant Inspector Wiseman Chinyoka confirmed the incident, saying the investigations are underway and further details will be availed in due course. Here's an account of the witness.
Police. Drive back the motor out in what is a police? Police are not watching. Drive us.
Now, the 12th edition of the Zimbabwe Uniformed Forces Health Services annual conference is underway in Bulawayo, with participants calling for stronger government support for national health initiatives. Now, the 3-day conference brings together regional and international stakeholders, including SADC countries and delegates from as far afield as Kenya and Nigeria.
This year's conference runs under the theme Healthy Uniformed Forces, Addressing HIV and AIDS and Contemporary Health Threats. The conference will run over the next 3 days, bringing together regional and international partners to strengthen health strategies for uniformed forces and communities, and to find sustainable solutions to contemporary health threats. Commander of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, General Philip Valerio Swanda, said contemporary health challenges were not isolated as they form a synergic threat to servicemen and women, operational readiness and regional security.
Healthy uniformed forces addressing HIV, AIDS and contemporary health threats. This is not merely a topic, but is a call to action. Our forces face dual crises from the persistent adversary of HIV and AIDS and emerging threats like substance abuse, mental health strains, other infectious diseases, and the impact of climate change and technology.
General Swanda urged countries to prioritize prevention and ensure stigma-free access to antiretroviral treatment, saying uniformed forces face a dual crisis from HIV and AIDS, as well as drug and substance abuse, mental health challenges, other infectious diseases, and the impacts of climate change.
These are not isolated challenges. They form a synergistic threat to our servicemen and servicewomen's readiness, operational effectiveness, and a threat to regional security.
Director General in charge of health services for the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, Brigadier General Godfrey Mutsetse, said the conference is meant to promote research within the uniformed forces. It is out of this research that the forces craft policies and strategies to improve the health of uniformed forces and that of communities through collaborations with the Ministry of Health, the National AIDS Council, and defense forces from across the SADC region and beyond.
Zimbabwe Defense Forces Community Assistance Week was there to put what we preach into action and also forge good relations with the communities within which we work. And the structures that the Zimbabwe Defense Forces put up are actually resilient structures that take into recognition issues related to climate change and the accompanying disasters like cyclones that often take place.
Addressing the same conference, National AIDS Council Chief Executive Officer Dr. Bernard Matsima highlighted the Council's efforts to strengthen health systems and sustain HIV programs despite funding challenges.
In the uniformed forces, they have the health departments, and over the next 3 days, they are going to share evidence-based researches which they've undertaken, but not only within Zimbabwe. We also have colleagues who have come from SADC countries, and as far as outside SADC, Nigeria is also represented, and Kenya. So it's a platform where we are using evidence-based information on HIV and AIDS.
He said the platform allows for the sharing on issues of HIV and AIDS and broader health matters, this year focusing on health financing and the sustainability of HIV programs, which have been affected by funding cuts from the United States government.
But this year it's also important because we are discussing issues of health financing and sustainability of HIV programs. We know that there's been reduced or funding is stopped, especially from the US government. We've had funding being stopped. This has affected our supply chain in terms of ARVs, in terms of agricultural commodities, but also health workers. Some health workers have been laid off.
As deliberations at the conference continue, delegates are expected to agree on strategies to boost health services and funding across the region, ensuring that prevention and treatment programs continue without interruption. For ZTN Prime, I'm Andile Chuma in Bulawayo.
You are watching Newsplus. We'll be back shortly after this.
Harare. Tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Welcome back. You are still watching Newsplus. Now let's give you an update of what's happening in the courts. Popular Zim dancehall artist Chillmaster has been banned from driving for 9 months. The ruling was issued by Mbari Magistrate following a directive from Judge President Mary Zimbabwe to review his initial sentence. He was convicted in May of culpable homicide and driving without a license. He was initially fined $200 for driving without a license and sentenced to 210 hours of community service for the culpable homicide charge. However, the initial sentence was reviewed by Justice Dube, who identified inconsistencies in the sentencing guidelines followed by the magistrate. Meanwhile, 10 Chinese nationals have appeared in court after being caught allegedly sniffing cocaine at a lodge in Harare's Newland suburb. The accused applied for bail, with Magistrate Tapio Kuuzai expected to rule this week. Prosecutors reviewed that on September 1st, police received information about drug abuse during all-night parties at a lodge in Newlands. Acting on this tip-off, detectives conducted surveillance and raided the lodge in the early hours of September 2nd, where 4 individuals were caught in a lounge sniffing cocaine and implicated 10 others in a nearby lounge. Field tests confirmed the presence of cocaine and crystal meth. The confiscated drugs weighed 36 grams with a street value of over $1,000. Now let's take a look at news from around the world. We started off in Sudan, where the UN says it is sending assistance to survivors of a landslide that killed at least 370 people in the remote Mara Mountains that is in the western Sudan's Darfur region. The armed group in control of the affected area, the Sudan Liberation Movement or Army, had earlier said that as many as 1,000 people could have died. 9 bodies have been recovered by a local rescue team. Days of heavy rain triggered the landslide on Sunday, which left just 1 survivor and leveled much of the village of Tarsen. The group said this in a statement. Now, appeals have been made for humanitarian assistance from the UN and other regional and international organizations. Senior DRC Ministers Patrick Muyaya and Jackman Shabani said on Wednesday that negotiations with M23 and AFC rebels in Doha are a central pillar in the search for peace as violence continues in the country's east. Speaking at a press conference that was held in Kinshasa, Deputy Prime Minister of Interior Jackman Shabani warned of the dire conditions in North and South Kivu, where he says armed groups continue to recruit youth and impose a paro government. He added that children in occupied areas are being denied free education, a move he warned will have considerable impact on the national education system.
Ce qui concerne les territoires occupés, que ce soit dans la province du Nord ou du Sud Kivu, la situation sécuritaire est pratiquement la même en termes de violation des droits de l'homme. Nous continuons au jour le jour à enregistrer les différentes violations des droits de nos concitoyens qui vivent dans des conditions extrêmement difficiles d'insécurité.
Still on some matters that concern Congo, President Vladimir Putin said that cooperation with the Republic of the Congo remained one of the priorities of Russia's foreign policy in Africa during a meeting with Congolese leader Denis Sassou Nguesso in Beijing on Wednesday. The Congolese president, on the other hand, praised the excellent state of relations between the countries, adding that the meeting provided an opportunity to exchange views on the problems that arise in the world.
Я очень рад вас видеть. на этот раз на полях торжественного мероприятия, посвященного 80-летию окончания Второй мировой войны и победы Китая над японским милитаризмом. Мы с вами регулярно встречаемся. Работа на этом направлении, работа вместе с Конго – это один из приоритетов нашей внешнеполитической деятельности в Африке. Конго наш надежный, проверенный временем друг и партнер. Вы принимаете регулярное участие на уровне глав государств во время встречи Россия-Африка, в других мероприятиях. Мы в постоянном контакте с вами лично.
A group of Sudanese refugees have returned to Khartoum after fleeing to Egypt due to an armed conflict in their home country. Egypt is the largest host of Sudanese refugees, accommodating more than 1.2 million Sudanese who have sought refuge there since the outbreak of the war in mid-April of 2023. And this is according to a report by the UN High Commissioner of Refugees that was published in 2024. Now, according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the number of displaced Sudanese people in Egypt reached over 670,000 by March of this year.
نزحنا من شهر 10 كده من 12/10 السنة اللي فاتت. طلعنا من هنا مشينا عبر من ضومبان من ضومبان مشينا شندي.
يعني البيوت اتسرقت سرقة شديدة، ما في يعني حتى المراتب الناس بترقد فيها ما في، الأواني العدة كلها اتسرقت.
Coming from Ghana, Ghana's President John Mahama has fired the country's Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono following a recommendation by an inquiry. She had been on suspension since April after complaints were lodged against her in petitions by 3 individuals. The presidency said Mahama was required to act in accordance with the committee's recommendations. But critics fear it sets a really worrying precedent and undermines judicial independence. Ms. Tokono has also been removed as a judge of the Supreme Court following the committee's findings. Now, the inquiry found evidence of unlawful expenditure of public funds that were linked to her private travel. Her spouse and daughter were reportedly paid allowances using public funds during a private trip with her husband to Tanzania in 2023 and another to the United States with her daughter. In Hawaii, Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupted once again on Wednesday, marking its 32nd eruption since December of 2024. Now, since December, Kilauea has followed the same underground magma pathway during each eruption. Recent episodes have typically lasted between 10 and 12 hours and remained confined to the crater, posing no immediate risk to surrounding communities. This marks only the 4th time in the past 2 centuries that Kilauea has erupted in such a pattern of repeated lava fountains. You are watching Newsplus. We'll talk money matters when we come back.
Captain Wally J's about to take you to boot camp.
It's the riveting science and tech show that keeps you up to date with the hottest gizmos on the block and revealing the illustrious and innovative visionaries in Zimbabwe. So much to see, you'll keep swiping.
This cherry red beauty is the Dairy Auto M7 mini electric car.
They've designed our brute force incubator board.
Look at what we've got here.
Solar powered scarecrow was part of the project that I was supposed to complete.
Catch Swipe every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. on ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294. Get the picture?
Welcome back. Now we talk business here on Newsplus. Zimbabwe has called for an upward adjustment of its shareholding in Shelter Afrique Bank from the current 1.25% to 5%. The aim is to enhance access to resources by Zimbabwean banks and bolster national housing development efforts. Shelter Afrique has supported Zimbabwean banks, which have accessed over $80 million in funding over the past 2 decades. Speaking to ZTN Prime, Minister of National Housing and Social Amenities, Jemu Soda, said such development will unlock capital for Zimbabwe.
I would speak of
our interest in increasing our shareholding in Shelter Afrique. The Shelter Afrique, which is a bank for infrastructure, particularly focusing on housing in Africa. Just recently, the Minister of Finance supported by signing for an increase of our shareholding from 1.5% to 5%. And over the years, we have been able to access about 85 million in terms of funding that came into the country. And obviously, when we move our shareholding to 5%, obviously that's much more that will be unlocked, and I would say we are getting adequate support.
Still in business, Zimbabwe's economic recovery agenda is breathing life into the iron and steel industry. The government has placed industrialization at the center of its growth strategy, with infrastructure development, mining, and manufacturing are driving the recovery. Within this framework, iron and steel are emerging as a backbone sector. But industry players warn high energy costs, imports, and expensive lending are weighing down growth. Our business reporter, Melissa Chatkobo, gives us more.
Iron and steel production serves as a foundational industry that catalyzes growth across multiple sectors of the economy. As a basic material for construction, manufacturing, and infrastructure development, local production of these materials at competitive prices can stimulate activity throughout Zimbabwe's industrial ecosystem. With infrastructure projects underway, industry stakeholders say this renewed focus has created a platform for expansion and new investments.
There is more opportunity rather than the cry we are falling, and we are so happy that the Dinson has come aboard, and the Dinson is promised us to do a lot of properties and proportion of steels that are in a 5-year plan.
But the path to growth is not without hurdles. High energy tariffs, limited affordable long-term financial instruments, and skills gaps are eating into production costs. Logistics constraints have further slowed expansion, leaving many firms unable to take full advantage of emerging opportunities. This calls for collaboration between government and captains of industry to come up with sustainable solutions.
Standards adoption is improving. At the same time, we have the headwinds, and which feature in the following: inconsistent power logistics and associated costs.
The launch of the Engineering, Iron and Steel State of Industry Report 2025 will offer recommendations that unlock policy support and investment incentives. Government says it's already working with industry to resolve these bottlenecks with a focus on long-term viability of the sector.
This association has demonstrated a lot of resilience, and we as government have a job and an obligation to support your resilience and make you fly and make this industry, because we have a lot to gain from your success.
Experts say introduction of export incentives will enhance export competitiveness on the global market. In the short term, steel exports have potential to earn Zimbabwe over $250 million in foreign currency. But unlocking this will come through collaboration between government and the sector. Reporting for ZTM Prime, I am Melissa Chitkobo in Harare.
In a continued effort to enhance innovation in Zimbabwe's ICT sector, the Postal and Telecommunications Regulatory Authority, POTRAS, is prioritizing inclusive regulations. Speaking at the sidelines of the Global Symposium for Regulators in Saudi Arabia this Wednesday, Regulatory Board Chair Jobo Jobo said Zimbabwe remains committed to creating an enabling environment for technological advancement.
The key takeaway has been artificial intelligence and responsible regulating. And I think from the position of a regulator, the symposium has been particularly beneficial in the ideas it has provided around responsible regulation, ensuring the safety of our vulnerable groups who stand to be affected by the implementation of AI. It has lots of good sides to it, but at the same time, there are many dangers which we need to watch out for. So as government implements AI, there is need to hold hands together and form strong partnerships with our private sector to ensure that we responsibly implement the use of artificial intelligence.
Regulatory Authority Director General Dr. Gift Machengete emphasized the importance of collaborative efforts in responsible regulating.
As regulators, we now have to ensure that we have a whole of society approach. A whole of society approach, which means that everything that we do, we should do it with others. There is need for co-creation together, so as to ensure that our regulatory frameworks are inclusive and acceptable.
Still in business, investor confidence in Zimbabwe's oil and gas sector continues to deepen after Invictus Energy's flagship Kabora Bassa project has been granted national project status, with terms of a petroleum production sharing agreement now agreed. The twin approvals announced yesterday mark a decisive step towards commercial gas production and long-term value creation for both Zimbabwe and shareholders. This comes barely a week after Invictus sealed a transformative partnership with Qatar-linked powerhouse Al Mansour Holdings, AMH, a deal set to inject fresh momentum into Zimbabwe's energy revolution. And now for some entertainment news. Now in our entertainment news, Nigerian gospel artist Sinach has arrived in Zimbabwe as a guest performer at the Today's Women Conference to be held from Thursday to Saturday at Glamis Arena. The conference aims to empower women through a celebration of faith, empowerment, and community.
It's not a performance, it's a ministration. And we're coming to just pour our hearts to God and just worship, as the Bible says, in spirit and in truth. And all lovers of Jesus, we're coming together to just worship Him. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of you as we lift up our hearts with one voice to the audience of one.
After the break, some sporting action.
They call me Racer X, or in this case, Racer J. All right.
Put your seatbelt on.
Welcome back. You are still watching Newsplus. Now we take a look at some sports news. We start off with some cricket. Now, Brian Bennett's fifth career half century of 81 runs off 57 balls was in vain as Sri Lanka claimed the first match of the three-match T20I series with a 4-wicket victory. The visitors won the toss and elected to bowl first. Having put a solid foundation from the onset, Zimbabwe had to endure roller coaster batting innings as they were restricted to 175 runs from 20 overs for the loss of 7 wickets. Out to chase the target, Sri Lanka put in a solid performance as they reached the halfway mark of their innings with 95 runs for no loss. Now, the second period of the 20-over innings gave Zimbabwe some hope as the visitors went on to lose 6 wickets. Sri Lanka managed to keep their cool as they chased the target with 5 balls to spare, winning the T20I series opener by 4 wickets. Warriors goalkeeper Washington Arubi says the side is ready to go as they prepare to face Benin and Rwanda in back-to-back World Cup qualifiers. Arubi is impressed by how the youngsters have settled in ahead of the games and hopes for a better result in their first match against Benin in Ivory Coast on Friday.
No, I'm feeling good, and you can see the guys are motivated. We are ready to go. It was a good session, just to remove the jet lag. But everyone right now, we're ready already. The first day, we can see that the boys are ready to fight.
Yeah,
No, I'm impressed. I'm impressed because they are gelling with us. Old guys just have to try to push them, to motivate them, not to be scared, because this is a big stage. But we're gonna be there for them, and we're gonna be there for each other as a team, so that we can get out with maximum points, going forward. Yeah, for now we are focusing on Benin because if you think about the next game, we're going to confuse ourselves. We just have to, to focus on this game, the Benin game, so that we can come up with maximum points. Our preparation is going to determine how we're going to make it, to get maximum points, like 3 points. We don't want to drop points, especially at this stage of time. No, I just want to tell the fans that they must keep on supporting us, even though sometimes they'll put, pressure on us. We love the pressure, and we're going to take all the negatives and put them into positives.
Still in football, the Zimbabwe Under-17 boys team are ready for battle as they take part in the CAF Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations 2026 COSAFA qualifiers. The boys, who have been in camp for close to a week, now have used that time to bond ahead of a crucial tournament, with winger Tadiwa Chakuchichi delighted by the change of attitude in the camp.
From South Africa, some from UK, some from Harare, some from Bulawayo. At the beginning, people had their clans and everyone was just with their people. But then now, I feel like we're now gelling in while we're getting to know each other more. And I feel like that's why we went into camp so early, is just to gel with each other. So I feel like now we're gelling in well as a team.
Now, with Zimbabwe hosting the tournament, the Under-17 boys will be expected to deliver in front of the home crowd, and they are ready to repay the faith of the supporters.
Yes, there's a lot of pressure because, as hosters, there are going to be a lot of supporters just saying a lot of things, and a lot of fans will be saying a lot because they want us to win. But then we are ready to show what we are made of, and we are ready to just showcase our talents and just put in so much work just to win this whole tournament. We are ready to just show everyone that we are Zimbabwe, and we are ready to just show that we can take Zimbabwe far, even to the World Cup. If they believe in us, we're ready.
Meanwhile, the Under-17 squad has been named, with over 5 boys who were part of the side that played in the CAF schools making the cut. The boys include Tadiwa Chakuchichi, Awakiwe Chabile, El Shaddai Sadomba, Daryl Zulu, and Ismail Lunat. ZIVA president says that the association is working around the clock to simplify the scouting process of junior national teams. Magwizi says they are working on introducing a selection process that will see the birth of provincial teams in collaboration with NAF and NASH.
One of the things that you speak to is the issue of the scouting of our national teams. We had to go around the country identifying talent, but going into the future, we have to establish teams at provincial level that are functional on an ongoing basis. We need to have a functional under-13 at provincial level, a functional under-15, a functional under-17 at provincial levels. These teams, this is where the national team will be built out of. On an ongoing basis, we should have tournaments for these teams, inter-provincial tournaments. And out of these, we then pick out our national under-17, our national under-15, our national under-13. Of course, working closely with NAF and NASH. It is very important. At any point, any given point in time, 2026 going forward, the TD or the head of technical should be able to give you, from our TDS system, we must be able to tell you who our top 23 under-17 are nationally without having to go scouting.
The ZIVA president also says they are ready to join forces with chairmen of various programs so they are able to identify more talent that is scattered across the country.
I think going forward, we have to have a substantive leaders in coaching the youngsters at provincial level, substantive leadership for the national teams on an ongoing basis. We can't be ad hoc at every turn. We need to have a sustainable model that will see us perform. FIFA is more than ready. We are going to be launching some programs which will be grassroots impact programs. And working, of course, with the chairmen of the various provinces, we want to make sure we launch those programs to support whatever work is happening at provincial level. This is how they can then identify the talent. We had a trip to Checheche. There was a tournament there which was organized, and we went to see talent. And one of the boys is actually here from Checheche who was chosen out of that tournament. Amazing talent right across Zimbabwe. But this talent, if we don't have a proper system which is sustainable, some of it will fall through the gaps, and we cannot allow that to happen. Those who are talented, we must always give them a chance to represent Zimbabwe.
Now, still in sport, Ngeze Platinum star coach Tekshua Chiragwi has praised his team's mentality and teamwork as the foundation of their consistent form this season. We get more from this report.
The Premier Soccer League season heads into the international break with everything still to play for, including a thrilling title race and the toughest relegation fight in years, adding to the pressure. Amongst the informed teams are 2023 champions Ngeze Platinum Stars, who have closed the gap to the log leaders to 8 points with 7 matches remaining. Madambro are the second highest scoring side with 34 goals and have picked up 10 points from a possible 15 in their last 5 matches. As they prepare for the run-in, head coach Tekshua Chiragwi has praised his team's unity and strong mentality.
You know, game of football, it's a game of numbers. So if you play individuals, it becomes very difficult. So, yeah, but if you play as a team, it's easy. If you lose the ball, we mark as a team. If you're in possession, everyone has to contribute. Either you're opening up, either you're creating space for someone. That's how football is all about. Modern football, everyone has got a role and a duty to play. So team spirit and teamwork, that can only give us results, even if you're not playing bad.
Depth in the squad is also given the side balance and consistency.
Yeah, you know, when you're one of the leaders in the team, you need to motivate each and everyone. As you can see from the first 2 weeks, as you look at our team, we've got so many youngsters. So we need to help them and give confidence so that they can do the best for the team.
Midfielder Marvelous Mkumba says the expectations that come with playing for a former champion team have pushed them to perform better this season.
As Ngeze Platinum, it's a big institution, so whether you don't want to set the targets, but you are going to be pushed to set the targets. So our target is to fight there, to be in the top 3. When it comes to win the championship, we'll see at the end of the season where we'll be. But yeah, so far so good. We are fighting each and every day, working hard at training so that we can prove ourselves in the league.
Mathematically, Madambro remain in the title race, but Chiragwi continues to edge caution and focus in the final lap.
I think it's important where we are now to remain focused and to try to win every game as it comes so that we maintain the good position on the log and also finish very strong. That's what is important. So we're just taking every game as it comes. That's what we want. And I think we're just maintaining. We are going up, not going down. Because the moment you win games, you are not dropping points. You are adding points. So it means now we are going up. That's what we want.
Premier Soccer League action returns after a 2-week break. And for Ngeze and their fans, the hope is that the team spirit and determination can still open a window of opportunity in the title chase.
And with that, we call it a night. Thank you so much for watching Newsplus this evening. My name is Faith Nyaude. We leave you there with a forecast. Good evening and enjoy the rest of your viewing.